Canada is a country. Waves of people came to this country, were welcomed by the folks who've lived here for millennia, the First Nation. And built this society with waves of people fleeing religious persecution, fleeing tyranny, fleeing to try and build a better life for themselves here than they had back home. Whether it's folks fleeing from world wars or fleeing from civil wars, these people always want the same thing: to be able to live in peace, to raise their families, create a better future for themselves and their communities. And that is what generations created, this extraordinary diverse society we have. Now, Canada remains one of the only countries in the world where citizens are, by and large, positively inclined. And one of the reasons we are that way is because Canadians have confidence in our
Aw, yeah. I don't know, Bernie, did you get the link? I sent you the link, right? Cool, Bernie's about to be here, so that'll be a double stream. We're streaming from Crypto Alchemist as well from Xirtus. Welcome to MK Canada, here with American Time Machine Kurt. What's up, Kurt? Kurt? What's up, Kurt? How you doing?
Hello.
You on all right?
And the sweet, the Quebecy, the Vincent. How you doing, Vincent?
Not bad, not bad. Life's moving fast, and it's all good.
Dude, who was saying that it would be cool if there was a stun gun that's set to melancholia? There should really, just because they've got phase, kill, but there should be like melancholia. I think that should be. We just watched the Pinocchio. What did you think of this? I mean, you posted it. You're the reason I watched it. Vincent said the Pinocchio was. What did you? I want to go find your post on it. Where did you post that?
Oh, that was just on my page. I mean,
Okay.
It's probably the best version of Pinocchio that's been put on film so far, I'd say.
Okay, so like, what the heck? Because like, I was watching it and I didn't even believe what I was seeing. I was like, this is not real. It's too good to possibly be real. It doesn't matter because it looks so convincing that it's as good. No, come on.
Del Toro.
Toro.
Well, I think
right.
It's sort of like I regard this as part of like a special branch of film that just seems to generate the most masterful pieces of work, which is like stop motion animation. Like, it's in the line of Coraline or Kubo and the Two String. Like, these things are just juggernauts and just stand alone in an industry that usually doesn't care about them,
I thought maybe it was digital. I was like, this got to just be fake.
It's a combination. You can actually watch on Netflix. There's a 20-minute video explaining how they made it. And
wow.
So they build, they have basically these puppets. Some of them are like bigger than people. Like they build these giant sets and then move these puppets based on what they need from perspective. It's mind blowing. It took 15 years to make this movie.
That's insane. I mean, it really is incredible. And it's funny because so much of the story of Pinocchio is about our own kind of becoming like gods. It's like the Hellenistic story of Hercules. It's similar also to the story of, he's got to go through trials and get his soul back. That's the thing that's really been this week for me. I'm thinking about Bart Simpson losing his soul over and over again, right? Bart Simpson sells his soul. And when he does, he realizes he never had a soul to begin with, really, because he had to platonically accumulate his soul, right? And that is the story of Pinocchio, is he has to do enough good deeds to become human. Otherwise, he continues to grow into more and more of a wooden fixture.
Well, I mean, it's our story, right? It's the story of like becoming and just trying to manifest your actual potential and who you really are. So Pinocchio is we're all wooden boys until we become actual men, or actual people rather. And I think that this particular version of Pinocchio kind of tries to combine it with the original version of Pinocchio in the original books, which kind of presented Pinocchio as a cautionary tale. Like, you don't want to be like Pinocchio because this is what like bad boys are like. And then it's usually about Pinocchio ending off dead or worse or something. And so the Disneyfication of Pinocchio turned it into a much cleaner story, but also an archetypal story, because it really went deep into, I guess, the enticement of pleasure and just the self-destruction that comes with that if you go too far into it. It kind of it changed pleasure in this context for essentially fascistic rule, like the idea of pride and honor through fascism being a replacement for pleasure. And if you look at our civilization, all the games that little boys care about are guns and violence, and this is what they play in the Pinocchio del Toro. Like the pleasure island is replaced by simulated war games with paint.
Yeah, this is an important adaptation that should be mentioned, is that, continuing with the Del Toro theme, I would say, of phalangism, this is kind of taking place in a fascist period. So all the kids are trying to be good fascist youths, and the adults are trying to raise good fascist youths, as they say in the show. And Pinocchio is not conforming, yet at the same time it said he could be a good fascist youth. That is something that they are hoping to engineer him into becoming, right? And that's
right. Turn him into a beast of burden, turn him into a donkey, basically.
In those literal words. I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah, I know. I remember. But yeah, there's things about Del Toro that he pushes things into a new direction, and so the inversion of pleasure for fascistic rule kind of reflects the warnings of the era. The Disney one was like, if you fall too much into the enticement of pleasure, they're going to turn you into a slave, basically, into a slave of the state, into a slave of the empire, or whatever is duping you, basically. And then this one is going, be careful, because order can do the same thing. Like, one of them is turning you into a slave through chaos, the other one is turning you into a slave through order, and both can be enticing, and both can be presented as something they aren't really. Like, it'd be meretricious.
Kurt, what do you think about Pinocchio?
I'm one of the rare people who, and like, my list of Disney movies isn't that extensive.
So you're saying you've never seen Pinocchio?
I probably have, and I cannot remember anything other than the basic, the gist. I remember the gist.
We all remember the gist.
So the next time you watch Pinocchio, it'll be the Del Toro version, right? Because this is the ultimate.
It's worth it. I'm gonna watch this movie over and over. I'm gonna analyze
seriously.
It.
It's pretty great. I mean, you got to watch this. But so, do you have any thoughts about? Okay, so the idea of the automaton and the spirit and the Geist and Pygmalion. Come on, Pygmalion. Anybody? Pygmalion.
I love new words. This is why I come on here.
That's hot. So Pygmalion in Greek mythology was a legendary figure of Cyprus who was a king and a sculptor. If you had to watch the best version of Pygmalion, right? And I'm going to list them in like order. It goes not as good, but still kind of important, Pygmalion. Then it goes My Fair Lady, right? Because My Fair Lady is all about this idea of engineering a commoner into an elite, right? It's the same idea. You're taking somebody who's subhuman and you're making them human. Is
Pretty
very
Woman.
Similar. Pretty Woman, a great example. Who's interestingly enough, the woman from Pretty Woman is the witch in the Santa Claus show on Disney right now, and so she's like the good guy because she's the evil witch in the woods, as Disney would do it. Okay, but then after My Fair Lady was Mannequin, which is arguably like the most important like version of movie, the most important version of Pygmalion, because it's all about this realization of the Shintoist spirit that he's putting into the doll. It's not that she's actually even, her actions matter, but her actions only matter in so much as that they're in a relationship with the sculptor, the creator, right? The creator's made this. He's inspired by her, so he makes her exist. That is the ancient Pygmalion idea. And so I would say watch Mannequin. But we haven't gotten to the most important thing, which is Mannequin 2. Because Mannequin 2, for all questions left not answered by Pygmalion, My Fair Lady, and Mannequin 1, were answered in Mannequin 2. Because here you see that the relationship really does center on the importance of the choices made by the person that is becoming. So we are all children, and we are defined by our choices. And Pinocchio is this representation of the entire human race's childhood. Like, how do we become more like our masters? And it's, again, because it's Italian, is dealing with that sort of Jupiterian idea of, do we solve the problems for the gods, right? And Pygmalion, right, which is, again, the root of the Pinocchio story, famous from Ovid's narrative poem Metamorphosis. Pygmalion, sculptor who falls in love with a statue he had carved, right? And there's a whole weird side of Pinocchio that people have brought up. The fact that he's a boy made out of pine wood. It means certain things in Italian. There's a kind of dark side to the Pinocchio thing that's kind of homoerotic and perhaps even
sort of like Alice in Wonderland had that problem too.
Yeah, just a little bit more homoerotic Alice in Wonderland.
The equivalent to. Well, it kind of harkens back to this is borders on transhumanist too, because the automaton and the relationship with humans to it, like it makes me think of like a Battle Angel or Metropolis,
No. This might be why I wasn't exposed to it, because quite honestly, I grew up in a really, really like Christian conservative background.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it's up that vein of like churches and sects that would basically do a pseudo ban on Harry Potter books, like, oh, that's actual witchcraft, that's the devil, So like if Pinocchio seems gay, I could understand why that, but like we were drilled with movies like The Lion King over and over again. I feel like The Lion King was a very rights friendly movie, across the board. Well, I think
trust the monarchy, man.
It was it was
Hamlet and animals.
Exactly. But yeah,
I love how there's so many memes I barely need to talk anymore. You know what I mean? It's better than soundboards.
No, I think I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen The Lion King. Like, you remember almost virtually everything in the movie if you watched it enough, even as a kid. But it's easy to always approach things from a fresh perspective, and there was a lecture that JP did on just The Lion King, which was a really interesting way to think about it. Like, if you think, is it about, is it Hamlet, the monarchy, but is there more of the archetypal thing going on, which is like, it's pretty cool to think that an animation film could kind of dive into I guess more into the subconscious than a lot of other productions have done in the past. I think that's a really cool thing about the older Disney movies.
Mm-hmm.
But
you should really check out the Jordan Peterson stuff on Pinocchio. Like, he goes really, really in depth, and he has probably some of the best analysis.
Oh yeah, like I wouldn't know who Geppetto was unless I watched that one too. Yeah, so he has a really interesting way of framing the Pinocchio thing too. It's I would have to paraphrase to, I would very far, but he definitely goes into what he calls Pinocchio's growth as a sort of a battle with the Leviathan, I guess he ends up saving his father in the end, right?
Yeah, he saves his father from the belly of the beast, right? So it's they have the giant whale at the end, which kind of represents his father going into the depths of hell, and then he has to rescue his father from hell. And his father is merely occupied with feeding himself on fish. He has no prospect of leaving. And so in the original one, what he does is he starts a fire inside the whale to get out. So he basically, when he's trapped in hell, he causes havoc, which is what he learned to do at Pleasure Island. And then he manages to get out of hell by using the lessons of darkness that he learned, basically. Integration of the shadow sort of stuff. And and then in the new one, what he does is he manages to get his way out, to get out of the whale by lying. So he lies, and using his nose extension, he manages to make like people climb across to an exit. And basically that's, in order to survive fascistic rule, you have to lie.
Huh. Nice. I like it.
Pinocchio to me seems like it's all about also Jiminy Cricket as a major point. The new movie really put this into perspective. It's Cricket's house, it's Jiminy's house.
Yeah, that was great. Having him in the heart, that's just a perfect place to put him,
Right.
His house inside the tree.
And so also he's when the father gets drunk and starts to make the doll, or to carve the wooden boy, he's he has to carve open the hole that the cricket's living inside of, right? So eventually that's why he's like, hey dude, what are you doing? He sticks around because the blue fairy says to stick around.
Grants him a wish if he manages to be the conscience of Pinocchio. And I think it was Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Good old Obi-Wan.
Ewan McGregor
Who plays Jiminy. And I mean, this is probably the coolest blue fairy I've ever seen in like any depiction ever. Just Del Toro, master of creating, imagery. And I mean, compared to the modern Disney blue fairy, I don't know if you saw the one they put in the Disney film, but like, of all the choices you could have gone, I think making her a full-on supernatural creature. Try the 20.
No, not the hot one. Yeah, what's the one that's all messed up? That's right, I said it that way.
22, I think, or 21.
Oh god, yeah, it's like came out this year,
Right
and so this was the best way. No offense, because like she could be a great actress or something, but But like the thing is, you made in every way a Tom Hanks movie. This is such a bad movie that it just made. If you're trying to find, I feel like this movie sucked so bad that people are gonna have to go watch Del Toro's movie more. They're like, oh god, I don't want to watch. Or is it the other way around? Are people gonna think that Pinocchio sucks because this movie sucked? Are they gonna miss out on Del Toro's movie because they made this?
The thing is that it's on Netflix, so Netflix is definitely going to have more viewership, I think, than Disney's version on Disney Plus, because Disney Plus, Disney Plus only has value in the shows that people care about, and most people don't care about, this movie. I mean, there's literally a scene of Pinocchio with shit, and he's just smelling shit. Someone had to animate it, it's crazy.
Too many ends right here. Where's the CGI Pinocchio? You gotta see this, guys. This is what it looks like. This movie. It's all these big, like, don't show it kind of things for some reason. But it's basically they tried to take the cartoon.
Just look up Pinocchio shit.
Well, I got moderate safe search on, but okay.
Don't worry about it.
This?
Look, if it was in. No, it's shit. I don't know why it's not good. It's right 2022 or something.
Oh, there we go. Right here? I don't know.
There's literally a scene of him with shit, and someone animated that. Like they put effort into this. Here.
I don't know. Like Did you know that there's a scene in where he smells poo? Well, I'm sure. Yeah. So this is probably like.
Why would you do this? Why would you put this in a Disney film?
Wow, Disney, seriously.
It's a good thing.
I mean, right. Now I get why you wanted to point this out. I was like, yeah, who cares? But this is like, so they pointed this out. You're just pointing out that they pointed this out. They pointed
this.
It's
a metaphor for the movie.
Yeah, this is out of control. This is very satanic, also like the worshiping. It's very holy mountain. I don't know, man.
Worship of shit is never good.
Did you guys see the yesterday we were talking about that movie, the exo. What's it called? Exo. You know what I'm talking about? The exo chamber, exovat. What was it called? Like the YouTube, exo. Ectolab. That's what it is. Ectolab. Do you guys see this thing? The Ectolab thing?
No, I have not.
We briefly went over this yesterday, but I mean, you know what? This isn't news. This is just real life at this point. I feel like we got to get, this is the alternative to MAID, right? As MAID's happening, they're also talking about artificial womb facilities. And so these artificial womb facilities that they're trying to develop to have 30,000 babies at a time, some would suggest, already exist, obviously. And they're telling you how that's going to work. One of the things about it was that the food ends up, let me see if I can find the part where they show this. You can play whatever movies and you can play noises at the baby to help develop the baby, whatever Spotify playlist you want to play while you make a baby. That's a thing to do. Hold on, I think Bernie's trying to join.
This is some
You can watch the baby in the womb from the baby's perspective, right? Imagine that you're seeing what you're like if you were in the baby.
Is this Death Stranding or something?
This is what people want to do a lot of the time, right? Like they want to avoid artificial womb.
Is there Norman Reedus somewhere?
I feel like like we're still animals, and the idea of separating the motherhood aspect of the animal there, like what doesn't seem like the consequences can end up being good. Like, I don't know, unless that's the first part about being put into the Matrix, I think that's one of the first things anyone thinks of. They see that like, oh, it's the Matrix pod, but
yeah. Basically, I mean, it's probably children of men. They're probably going to sterilize everyone and then just be like, hey, look, we have artificial, so this is going to be the norm now.
Yeah.
Don't have anyone having babies without them consenting.
Definitely the pod thing sticks out. The Matrix pod sticks out. Here's the part that's messed up, right? I mean, bringing it up again, mainly to point out this. They have the nutrient supply that usually gets excreted from the mother, right? But instead, they're going to have that fed to a yeast, and like the same way that Carlsbad beer is produced from yeast being ate by some weird, mold, and it eats a sugar. The waste will then be turned back into food and recycled. So rich antibodies, etc. Second bioreactor designed to eliminate waste disposal, and then it can be recycled. Right? Enzyme recycling. Well, it's alchemical. That is the thing. The idea of eating your own feces, even if it's through enzymatic recycling, is alchemical. That is the holy mountain.
Alchemical.
Yeah, but that's literally like the poop scene in Holy Mountain.
Yeah, everything. Don't just put that on alchemy.
Necromancy is alchemy,
Right. That's true. That's true. But I mean, that is kind of crazy that we've gotten to the point.
So you're telling me last time when that girl shat on my chest,
that was alchemy, yeah.
Jesus, I knew it. I felt that power. I was making alchemical gold at that moment.
Oh man, Quebec, man.
Sorry, it's the just for laughs part of me.
Everyone's talking about artificial wombs. Not everybody. But who's talking about artificial wombs? Elon Musk, Vitalik Buterin, crypto geeks, Ayn Randists, people that want to make it possible for women to feminists, but also like the fake ones at the very top, like Soros and stuff. Yeah, people that are just equitists that want to make sure that women don't have to have babies. But yeah, a lot of feminists, that's true. I've got a good friend, Ivy, who's all about this. She thinks like the idea that women need to have babies, it's a detriment to society, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they could be spending all their time working.
Want to phase out men, so they're like, the wombs won't need men.
You won't need women or men.
There's something extremely beneficial about having a huge hurdle to creating life. Like if creating life is like easy, I think it becomes also easy to take it for granted a little bit. Sure. That's the weird dynamic of that. Well, and also I think the whole philosophy behind having a child, it's like you can go very deep on the conversation in many ways, but I think kind of the backbone of it is like, all right, is the world we got here, am I experiencing it in a good way? Is this a world that's worth protecting? And even if you end up going against that in that moment, you decide yes. You decide yes, and you decide to actually bring another life into this world. And then you have to make sure it's geared and it's ready to actually accept all of the negative inputs that are naturally going to occur. So if we remove, and I think part of that is making sacrifices as a parent. I think it's really simple. You need to make sacrifices as a parent, and I think that goes along with the dynamic of, well, the woman suffers a lot to have children. I'm not saying the woman should suffer, but at the same time, it's like a weird, maybe necessary trauma bond with another human being that says, okay, I have more skin in this. I have more skin in this. I'm going to make sure that, I make it worth my time. That's, I understand it's just different. Like perhaps men have a different weird dynamic going on. And like, maybe we suffer in different ways, but it's
men who get a girl pregnant should get flicked in the nuts once a week until
there you go. They both have to have skin in it.
Watch out. Like, well, it's too easy. They could just leave. Like too many men just fuck off. And that's it.
I like this. What about seahorse in it though? Like all of a sudden, if dude's seahorse in it, seahorse dads.
We have to mention what is it?
Look
Junior?
At that dude. Oh yeah, Junior, bro.
The movie Junior with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
I mean,
what's
even happening in the movie Junior? You know what I mean?
Right,
like I've seen it a million. I've seen Junior so many times, and I still don't completely know if I know what's happening in this movie. Like he's just kind of like going for it. But psychologically, what is the goal of this movie? Are they saying they want men to have babies?
Apparently they're scientists, so apparently they're doing it for science or something. But like, I mean, of course, it would have been interesting if it turns into a horror movie or something. Like you don't know what will actually happen, and there's just like so many factors.
That's the sequel.
Right. Like what happened? Okay, what happens if you artificially graft a womb on someone's intestine, and that person takes a bunch of steroids constantly, and then they have a baby? I'd watch that movie, personally. Especially if Danny DeVito's sperm is donated. Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger make a baby for science. You know what?
Wait, that's right, Danny DeVito again. So twins and Junior. Like the fact that he did both, twins and Junior both. Like what the heck, right? Oh, Twin Junior did not come up with what I wanted.
Yeah, I wondered who Danny DeVito sold his soul to. Like, man.
Well, his daughter's making that weird witch show right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that thing? Danny DeVito daughter witch show. It's like what is the thing this is all about? It's an animated thing called what? Starring alongside new series. Come on, tell me what the freaking thing is called. Voiceover on the new show. Little Demon. I knew it was something like that. Okay. I should have just said Little Demon as a guess because that's what I was thinking it was. I was like, it's got to be some show about a little demon.
Well, if you look at like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, like some parts that stuff is just straight up like traumatic stuff. Like there's real horrible implications to some of these stories, and Danny DeVito seems to be paying for his selling his soul or whatever he did through that show. Like he just the most humiliating thing you can do to an old person, and he does it all.
That's true. I wonder, but I guess that's also part of the thing is like when you make fun of yourself instead of others, that means it's coming from a place of power. I don't know. I can never pinpoint Danny DeVito entirely. I'm sure that, to be a Sicilian actor who's made it in the world and everything, like he's probably had to go through a lot of different agreements and everything.
Oh, yeah.
But, I haven't
The
dug
thing
deep.
is,
I did walk by his house once in LA because
he's
it's
such a unique person, you know, like there's no one like Danny DeVito in the world. And so to have this sort of character exist makes him a very useful sort of peculiar, like he's good for the roles he does. There's no one else who could do them, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
this guy's been around for a long time. He probably did the best penguin ever.
yeah, he's a great penguin. Yeah, he's out of control. I don't know.
He looks like he has a really short but thick penis. That's a Norm Macdonald joke, by the way.
Bernie, there were tons of points along there that you could have thrown out some sort of an Ormus reference, and I know that penguin penis wasn't the one, so I'll give you a challenge. No, I was kidding. But
yeah, I'm staying quiet on this one so far. I think you won me with homoerotic Pinocchio before I even jumped on.
That's the thing, man. There's just no way to get around what the word is in Italian, you know, for a piece of pine wood, you know? Like a kindling piece for pine wood. There's a lot of things in Pinocchio that's kind of that way.
But I think that's just all old stories. It seems that there's just something really like creepy underneath most older stories. Even not that old, like Shrek, the real Shrek compared to the Shrek we have in movies. Is just you just have like stories that are way more twisted than the actual versions we end up seeing. So it's funny because
have you read this book?
I've read parts of it. I mean, look, I'm not going to waste too much time on Shrek. If I do, I'm going to get possessed by him or something.
That's the thing, right? Because he's like associated with Satanism, or at least some sort of weird cult magic. And the guy who's Stieg who made it, and then it was the inspiration for the name, or at least it's connected to the name of Xena Shrek and her husband Shrek, who changed his name to Shrek, likely, right? Just around the same time that he was interviewing Charles Manson, and this book was coming out.
Yeah. And then Jesus.
I mean, Shrek is a really weird book, and the fact that Spielberg was right away like, yeah, go get it. We're gonna make it. It's got to be done.
It's weird because I've seen like a lot of people really, really love Shrek, and I can see the type of relationship dynamic that is sort of based around the Shrek story. So they're flawed human beings who are just, you know, they live in the worst environments possible, the most toxic environments possible, and then they end off getting a girlfriend who's literally like a goddess, and then they turn her into literally a monstrous version of herself to accommodate them and be in love with them. And it's just, you know, like it's toxic relationships 101. Just you take someone, and then when they're with you, you just make them worse.
Let's read this children's book for a page, shall we? Fat raindrops began sizzling on Shrek's hot knob. Did you ever see somebody so disgusting? Said Lightning to Thunder. Never, Thunder growled. Let's give him the works. Lightning fired his fiercest bolt straight at Shrek's head. Shrek just gobbled it, belched some smoke, and grinned. Lightning, thunder, and rain departed. I don't know, just there's a lot of particular words here. Shrek's hot knob was like the first sentence.
That's a standout.
It's kind of a standout. Gobbled, though. I don't know. There's some weird stuff in Shrek, is all I'm saying. And
he's eating lightning bolts.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That actually is a bit more Norse. It gives him kind of a level there. Like he can consume the powers of Thor.
What's the design on his shirt? Are those pink peanuts or amoeba or what's going on there?
It was the 80s.
Whatever your Freudian slip will allow, basically.
Kidneys.
Socks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Shrek was definitely a lot more hardcore than people realize. A lot of them are, but more occult. I remember the, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. That book. Do you guys remember that book? I mean, I guess they made a movie out of it.
They made a movie.
Yeah.
Did you remember the book?
Never read the book.
See, the book was like acid, and like the drawing style, it's like drawings. You know what I mean? Like it's actually got the inking and lines and stuff. It's old school, and it's super. It's got this kind of I don't know what's happening vibe, which you can tell definitely inspired the movie. The movie's all about the science.
Looks like The Economist.
Yeah, it's got that same kind of infomatic quality to it. but nobody at first
Patching
understands
process.
why it's happening, and it's clearly the fault of science. And it's like Midwestern town has no idea like why it's happening. You know, it's like these horrible like chemtrail weather experiments that are leading to what's it for? Well, to improve the agriculture, to improve food production in the United States and the world, right? So it's a pretty deep metaphor, because the weather changing in order to facilitate this new GMO Monsanto society.
Looks much better than the movie, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was like helping out at an elementary school, and I went, like the kindergartners and first graders all went, and they took me to see it, and I was like, this is amazing. I actually liked the movie, but I think it was only because, well, also here, you know, the kids were cool, but like only because the movie had this book. If you've read the book, it facilitates that idea, but maybe it's some of it's missing. But I still think they did a pretty good job, because he's a scientist and he's messing with weather. You know, I think that they at least put that in there, and that's important. Like, look at the machines that they have to use to pick up the food. Converted. I don't know. That was pretty hardcore stuff. What do you remember?
Doesn't the titles like resemble the Economist magazine, Something Fierce?
Yeah, it does have that vibe. It really does. I forget what kind of to ask Jay what the font is that they use. But there's definitely, that same kind of bouncingness to it.
Yeah, well, it's hatching and cross hatching, so it's like the old school way of inking shadows. It was more economical than having different colors when you were printing on newspapers or in certain magazines. Just the cheapest way to do it, right?
Was that like Grandfather Twilight? Is that one book? Yeah, did you ever read this one? Grandfather Twilight? Grandfather Twilight is so based. It's this dude who he's made of moonlight, and he lives in the woods in a house that's just the woods all woven together. And he has to like pick a pearl, and like the pearl, he brings it through the day, and he like gets it bigger and bigger, and then he puts it in the sky at the end of the day, and that becomes the moon. It's a pretty epic book.
I just want to read it right now.
Yeah, man. Read it to us, Andrea.
Reading Rainbow. Right?
Dude, I'm down for a children's book story time.
Oh yeah, man. Let's all take some acid. I'll take some acid and listen to Andreas narrate.
We'll have to set that one up.
All right.
What do you guys remember? Like, do you guys remember any like weird books like that as children?
I mean, look, Wrinkle in Time comes to mind, because Wrinkle in Time like kind of fucked my brain over. But I mean, Animorphs.
So
weird.
Animorphs.
Big. The first thing that came to my mind was the Bernstein Bears. You remember those?
Yeah. For sure.
That was good. I like the Bears.
You mean the Berenstain Bear?
Berenstain.
I'm just joshing you. Yeah, the Berenstain Bear. Stain on the history of Tartaria. The Stain Bears.
Yeah.
You know this, right, Kurt?
Dinotopia was my favorite as a kid.
So
Kurt,
I guess
you're familiar with this?
Hadron Collider.
Do you know about this, Kurt? The Mandela effect thing?
Is that you'll have to explain.
So everybody remembers Berenstain Bears, but apparently it's always been Berenstain Bears.
What?
But everybody remembers Berenstain Bears.
They're just staining the reputation of them.
Yeah.
Is that a Jewish name?
Well, yeah, but it's the more complicated. Actually, the fun fact history is that because they were living in an area that had a war between Bohemians and Tartars, and the Tartars won, then the name became Stain or Stan. In the old days, it would have been Stein if the Bohemian Germans had won. So that was the main difference for stone, like translation. But it's interesting because it again comes back to the Tartars.
Okay. Yeah, I dig it. I wasn't there. Like, I think there's always some sort of subtext. Like, everything is culturally influenced to one degree or another. But that's what's amazing about animation is that you don't understand it as a kid. But, like, when you go back and see a lot of this, there are weird parallels that you can draw between a lot of things.
This is we've done this before, but I just love to ask anyway. Which one is the Fruit of the Loom logo?
I always remember the top one.
Right. What about you?
But the thing is, I think that
I'd say the top one.
It's
I
never
remember
been
the
the top one. It's
Cornucopia.
always been the bottom one now.
I think
Yeah.
that probably what happened is that there's probably a company that like made an off-brand version, like a made in China version, that like they just stole that logo and added that thing, and then everyone assumed it was the real thing.
Maybe.
Well, is that the loom?
That
is that
makes sense.
priming? That's priming going on with turns of phrase.
Dude, that cornucopia kind of could have been used for a loom. Yeah, I don't know. How about the James Bond Mandela Moonwalker braces? Do you guys ever watch James Bond? This might be like way too specific. Did you guys watch James Bond? Do you remember this one? So in James Bond, there's this guy and he's got metal teeth.
Jaws.
He
And
looks
Jaws-
freakishly like
his name is Jaws.
Frankenstein.
And he meets this girl, right? And this girl, she smiles at him. And there's a scene where she smiles, and she's got braces. And you're like, oh, that's hilarious, because she's got braces and he's got metal teeth. So they're in love with each other. And now it's like she's never had braces. What are you talking about? But like lots of people apparently care enough to remember it that way. I don't know.
It's crazy because you can alter because VHSs and old movies have a lifespan.
And it's a CIA, I mean, it's MI6, MI7. Like, the fact that it's a British military show, like, if anyone's going to mess with anything.
Yeah, that's what I've always thought. Is it just like Hollywood and the controllers just doing it to try to get more sales in their old movies and stuff? Like, oh, it was always this way.
Well, there was recently I saw a video of a woman. She was talking about it was a speech of the Queen, and and then they altered it later. So like they released a documentary and they omitted some things that she had said, and then they were just like, this is like, it changed the message entirely, and they were just like, this is what was always said, and it's just like a clear case of altering history. And we have no way of actually controlling this because all the data banks are digital, so they can just do whatever they want. And we have to rely on old technology that is usually degrading or obsolete to actually verify it.
It wouldn't be such a big deal, you know. I mean, like, if history gets forgotten and we're philosophers and we think to ourselves, hey, the truth is abstract and really it's more about what we do with the moment based on what stories we're told anyway, blah, blah, blah. But since we're not all philosophers, and because the world is presented to us as real and it's constantly shifting and it's being done by persons trying, and corporations and states trying to control us, it does become kind of disconcerting. And it's very, again, it's Orwellian. It's very 1984. So that, you know, so everyone who says, hey, you know, why would you care about this silly mass hysteria thing that could easily be explained away by Occam's razor with simpler explanations that people just aren't paying attention in their daily lives. And there's enough people out there that there's going to be, I mean, I can get all of that also. I'm just saying it's interesting. And it does mean a lot for the military industrial complex. And Twitter, right? Because now you can edit tweets, I think is almost a metaphor for
yeah. I mean, look, Occam's razor is limited to basically knowledge. So the less that you know, the less you can actually apply Occam's razor properly. So people don't know what they're talking about. They go, I'll apply Occam's razor. It's probably not happening. And that's how the modern application of in every argument I've ever seen of Occam's razor. They're just like, okay, well, ignorance isn't a reason to suspect that reality is as simple as your simple mind. You know, reality is more than that. And if we're to give up semblance of like reality based on actual facts and actual phenomena, then anything can mean anything, and basically our minds are going to be lost to confusion and just whatever shapes they put on the wall in Plato's cave, we will believe because truth is illusory. I'm not sure.
When did you guys read 1984? Like, when did that first happen for you guys?
Probably in
Grade
high school, but I'm trying to reread it now. It's just fucking depressing as shit. So,
yeah, right.
Like,
yeah,
it's a hard read. I'm reading it. I'm just like, man.
How about Animal Farm?
I don't think I've ever actually read Animal Farm.
Ooh.
So
okay.
I don't think
I know.
I don't think conservatives like either of those books. Just
right.
like, yeah.
Well, some libertarian conservatives do, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I was more of in like a right-wing school district. So like there were some things that most people I think actually end up getting exposed to, but I wasn't exposed. I've gone back and done some reading. Like I've read Fahrenheit on my own time. And
Great.
I never actually read 1984 or Animal Farm, but I kind of got the gist from Animal Farm because like I sub-taught for a couple years, and I was able to browse through Animal Farm on some of my days there. So I think I got a general synopsis. It's amazing.
Fahrenheit 451's amazing, and I recommend the movie from the 60s in Sweden, which is just a phenomenal shooting of the film. I mean, it's just everything about it is so good. And the idea of the firefighters that like fight with these fire, that's their weapon. They make fires. That's what the firemen do. It's brilliant.
Yeah, they destroy any access to knowledge or these gateways to the past that we call books. But
Right.
my only gripe with the book, I love what the book was going for. It just seemed like a weird thing. Like, okay, people will probably destroy information. I don't know if we'll actually have firefighters that, fight books with fire. It seems like that. I felt like there might have been a different way to go about that. Like, all right, there's people who destroy these things, but it just seems like an unlikely way it would play out in reality. You know what I mean?
Right. So I was in fifth grade when I read Animal Farm. It was an optional required reading. Like I had to read something, and I chose Animal Farm and The Giver and a couple other books. And so it was really lucky that those were the books that I got to read. I thought The Giver was very good as well. But The Animal Farm, I thought was just so amazing. I think anyone ever should read. It's so short and it's so great. It's the fairy tale version of 1984. And it's just so mad. It's the Disney magical version of 1984 because it's talking Looney Tunes that are going through the world ending, and civilization going the way it does. There's nothing quite like it because it's so funny. And I don't know what it is, but it's just very different than 1984. Supposedly George Orwell got shot in Spain with the anarchists, and that led to his suffering when he was in Scotland while writing the book. So it was very cold in Scotland, and he was kind of thinking about, the Glasgow West Side and all of these like industrial areas that are being bombed out and rebuilt, and how easy it would be to like erase the history. So 1984 is essential, I think. But I read it like a year and a half later. The power went out for like 3 days because of a storm in Santa Cruz. So I went to the Capitola Book Cafe, and I just read it back when we still had like book cafes, But I read it then, and it was perfect timing because it was wet and gray, but also the power being out and just thinking about how everything can be taken from us and erased. And there's been so many times like that since where someone's had a Kindle and they've deleted their copy of 1984 in Animal Farm. Do you remember when that happened?
No.
Dude, so, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think another one of the messages behind the Animal Farm, again, this was just me skimming it, but it seemed like what I was hinting at is the idea that generally speaking, the authority figures that we put into power, even they only have a very small understanding of what's going on in the much larger scheme of things. Because, I think it does show how finite authority really is and how illusory the idea of authority is in a way.
Check this out. 1984 Animal Farm deleted from Kindles. This was 2015. Users of Amazon's e-reader device were surprised and unsettled over the past day to receive notice that George Orwell's works that they had purchased, including 1984 and Animal Farm, had been removed from their Kindle and their money refunded. Now, accordingly, it was because someone didn't use the correct British rights holding or something like that. But still, just the fact that they could take back your copy and what they took back, and the message sent that the first things that have been revoked with such a claim from the Kindle was Animal Farm in 1984. I mean, the control of history, right?
1984 going down into the memory hole is pretty ironic.
So what's the name of this stream all about? The Owlifornia.
Oh, man, because I'm in California and back home for a while, and so I'm wearing I'll do like a solo there. Wearing my Owlifornia gear. Now it's just been thinking a bit about California and the way they set it up. You know,
Are you heading to Bohemian Grove or?
it's not far actually.
Doesn't Giant usually stream from there?
Yeah, it's his submarine. Yeah. I wonder if he's supposed to be setting up. I sent him the link. I'll check to make sure. I know he's been working and busy as well. But yeah, I'm out in the did that work? Oh yeah. He's trying to get the thing working on a thing. He should be here soon. But yeah, I'm out visiting family in California, which is what's been making, you know, winter Christmas hectic while still trying to do all the regular streams and stuff. It's interesting because I was through Nevada City today and looking at California and the gold rush area, and you see like they're starting the gold back up again because the value has finally happened. And there's a bunch of signs everywhere that are like, no mine, stop the mining, because like it's going to destroy the environment and people are going to die, and kids that are looking through caves are going to never be able to go through those caves again and all these things. And it's like the end of an era all of a sudden because there's money to be made and going back to the gold rush.
Gold.
Yeah, a lot of that. And then, you know, in general, like there's the cannabis production is taking over the state. All the cars, the police cars are so expensive because they have like, we're pleased to show the first Ferrari or whatever that the police force has. Like, because
they can afford that right now, yeah.
Or they just took it from somebody. They're like, yep, this guy had an armored truck. Now we do. Welcome to America.
I would have thought they would have been the first to have electric police cars in California.
They do. They have Teslas too. Yeah, of course. I've seen Teslas. But I mean, they got gas money. You know, it's the police. So they can do whatever they want. So they've got chargers. And I think they like engines. Like this, the patrol and the sheriffs and everything like that. Pretty much. I don't know.
They want it to be known that they're around. So that if you can rev your engine loud, they're happy.
California is definitely a weird place, and you know it's weird coming back and seeing like what they've done to it, like what Gavin Newsom has done to the state. It's, you know, the gas is twice as expensive. Things are pretty crazy, but people are still actually pretty good. There's a lot of people in California that people don't realize it's not just like it's not as bad as you heard. Sure. I know I sound like Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah right now, but I swear. There's like at least 2 people, you know, that I know that are.
Wait, is it the movie This Is the End? Does it take place there?
This Is the End.
I think it does. I think it is there.
Is that the one about Nirvana with
That's with Seth
Gus
Rogen.
Van Sant?
All the good people just fly off into space, and
celebrities.
Everybody else is just left to suffer the rapture, and it's pretty funny. Yeah,
that does sound like California. Yeah. I mean, so the thing about California, right?
Talk about a homoerotic looking movie.
Dude, this movie has a giant devil walking around California with his dick swinging around. Like they really put a lot of effort into emphasizing the homoerotica of it all. I mean, they kind of get him to a gimp.
I hope Johnny can come on because he can say some more about this, talking about the serpent and this idea of land masses that we have that are maybe former living things, right? This is something that Stellium talks about and the natives talk about. They call this Turtle Island, right? When we talk about Canada. So there's this thing about the serpent in California, but California is really big. And I know we've kind of decided that British Columbia is not and that Baja is not, but at one point they were, right? At one point this was British Columbia to San Diego and to Cabo and Anchorage. Even if you think about it, Anchorage was really, this whole area was kind of this long, and you wonder like, well, how much communication was going on? Well, there's from Novosibirsk and Nova Anglijsk in Anchorage, there were all of these settlements from coastal people that had boats running up, and you can see totems, and the Haida have totems. So you look at the totem poles that exist all the way down to here, and you have to say, okay, well, if there's totem poles all the way down to about here, then, and they're all very similar, then yes, there's a connected culture that's existing all along California, or whatever California is. But California is interesting, kind of similarly to Florida having giants. California is known for having giants. You have like 8-foot tall natives. even in Chile, the Mapuche are very tall for the natives. So, it's something that I've thought about a lot recently, is just how weird of a place California really is. The fact that there's so much pure gold here is associated with the fact that this was a reset place. There's all sorts of, let's look at the gold. What's it called? Telos, California, Shasta, right? The stories of Shasta, because people have gold mines still going on in Shasta, is that there's just underground caverns with super cities left over from a fallen civilization that was all across California, and that so much of the gold is just exploded from this city of gold, basically, and that's what's left over.
Shyster.
I'd like
Also
to
that
be
they're
the
visiting.
city of gold.
Right?
Do you think this is linked to El Dorado?
Yeah. The idea that California had a number of El Dorados, gold-producing cities with linear accelerators connected to volcanoes. When I was in Chile, I saw like 13 volcanoes go off. I was in the south mostly during 2015, and it was just like from Pucón, from Santiago. It was actually, what was it like? What was the first one? Like, I forget where the first one was, but then afterwards Araucanía, and then Valdivia, and then I saw the what's it called? Villarrica, Chile, Villarrica. So this one almost got me, man. This one was really dangerous in Pucón.
I'm glad you're alive.
So, I mean, rad story though. So I went and I was sleeping outside in this beautiful Austrian looking, obviously settled by Germans and everything, South American little mountain town. It's a beautiful place. And this snow capped mountain there. And so warm, sleeping under the stars and everything, no tent. And then we went and climbed the thing with ice picks, and it was starting to smoke a bit. And they're like, oh, don't worry. It just kind of does that every once in a while, but it's fine. And then we get to the top, and there's a bunch of scientists already there looking at it. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're not supposed to go that close today because it's just a little, but no worries. It's not going to erupt or anything. I was like, are you sure? Like, oh, yeah, it hasn't erupted in like 20 years or something like that. And so it can't be likely to happen anytime soon. So then we go down to town, and then so we had like another couple days to stay there, but we decided to go because we went to another place, and then that next day was, or I think it was like 2 days later, the day that we would have left was the eruption. And so it like rained fire down on the entire city and messed up Pucón, and people had the alarm systems to go into these like weird buildings that they have set up for safety. And yeah,
don't worry about the smoking volcano. Nothing to see here.
But I got to go like skiing down the thing in this like little like dish, and then just use ice picks to keep myself from going too far. It was brutal.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it wasn't. See, I made it sound really dangerous. No, I was fine. But yeah, no, I mean, the idea of California having these kinds of things, like the idea that there are along this West Coast, maybe leftover El Dorado like super cities is interesting, because there are a lot of places here. For instance, the Clear Lake, right, is where there's a bunch of petrified forests.
Underground city of LA, supposedly.
Yeah,
that,
there's so many things
people are from.
There's so many things.
Hasn't Elon like bored through it yet with his little boring company going through underneath LA?
Well, I think that's probably the reason it's the Boring Company is the most exciting company, right? That's why it's called the Boring Company. One of the things I found interesting is San Diego. San Diego, I've gone to just, I can't tell you because I can't remember, not because I have rules against it. How many like caves parties I've been to in like underground built out places in San Diego that you just go through like a pothole or like some sewer drain area, and then all of a sudden there's like a rave going on in San Diego, that's underground with hundreds of people. So San Diego has some of the most expansive giant tunnel areas that I've ever seen. But then again, so does Minneapolis or any city. So it is what it is. I think I frequented more of those parties. San Diego was nuts. But yeah, the Los Angeles subterranean spots are weird because they've got full-on train systems, right? They have the underground metro systems that are connected that from this Art Deco period, which is like Brooklyn or something.
You
And that's
kind of
pretty
have
crazy.
the same thing in Montreal.
Yeah, right. I wonder.
It's where the Ninja Turtles live.
Dude, the French Ninja Turtles.
But yeah, it's connected to malls and all sorts of stuff. You can live in Montreal and go shopping and stuff and never go outside, depending where you live.
Wow, good point. Oh my
Yeah.
God, Montreal is the place I need to go tunnel searching for. That is a good point.
Come on
No,
over.
you would love the subway system. There's sections where when you're walking through it and there's nobody, just because you're at the right time, it looks like a zombie apocalypse. It's perfect.
It's true.
Hmm.
Can't confirm.
Especially because half the people living under there are meth heads, so they're literally zombies.
I remember reading a book about like people living in subway tunnels and stuff, and like there's an entire underground literal civilization that just lives there. This is about they gave 3 chickens to every person in I don't remember which country, and it just eliminated waste and basically made people have free food. You know, so the government.
Dude, chickens are rad.
Chickens are amazing.
Right now, Giants Farms got a bunch of chickens, and you know, I was thinking about it. Like, I didn't want to make it like a thing, but like Chicken City is this idea of like of Tim's to have a small area with chickens. You know, a lot of them, and instead they've got like Chicken Istanbul or Chickenlandia. It's like all of the it's like the whole property, and the only gate is just they have a fence around their whole property, which is like acres away. So the chickens can go anywhere, right? So these are like that's what they mean when they say free range chicken,
Yeah.
like libertine chicken, you know. And I think that changes
That's risky
everything.
though. That's really risky for like coyotes and like that sort of
Right.
stuff.
That was, they have to have the fence for the coyotes to keep
Yeah.
they have things just to keep things off their property, right? Exactly. Those who tell the stories rule society. I mean, that's the thing about the news right now with everyone saying, what was the one? Elon Musk controls opinion. That was the new way they're framing it. He's
Interesting.
going because
So-
he's going to be able to control opinion by making it seem like he's got the free speech, which is what CNN and everyone's like, well, we're talking for everybody. This is what everyone thinks until they
So
realize that
Twitter
wasn't the
wasn't
case.
doing that before then. They weren't controlling any opinions. Or
I mean,
anything.
Well,
just
it's not
now
about
that
Twitter
people
doing
have-
it. It's about him doing it.
Accuse those you oppose of doing what you're doing, and that's it. You just get away with it. See, if you can do it as long as you have the moral high ground, and they always set themselves up as having the moral high ground. Because I mean, they could be talking about him exposing or like eliminating the child sex aspect and like all these other things, but instead they focus on him. I don't know, not letting people track his plane movements.
Right. Which is
Ah,
kind
so
of
much-
dangerous. Yeah.
So much for free speech. We can't dox him and attempt to assassinate him anymore. Like, sorry.
But
No, yeah.
how dare he fire those people in charge of censoring child pornography that did nothing over the last 5 years? How dare he?
Well, the thing is also, it's like, are we too quick to be like, hey, you, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? Because, is he my friend guy, buddy? I don't know.
I don't
He's like
think so.
billionaire. He wants to have all the money and he's going to be
I
fruitful and
still
multiply.
think he's an alien.
That's fine. If he's an alien, I hate him less. If he's literally David Bowie, which sometimes from some angles. But
There was a question from the press to the Biden administration, and it was about the files that Elon released, and they did seem to be kind of embarrassing on behalf of Twitter at that time and the political alignment that it was displaying. But when they asked, I believe, was it the press secretary? I don't know. But anyway, they got a very defensive reaction. They're like, "Oh, that's old news." Like virtually as soon as it came out, like, "Oh, that's old news." Yeah, you said the quiet part out loud. So yeah, we could just move on from this. But yeah, it is kind of funny to see the backlash and the cultural impact of Tesla being a really overvalued stock for a long time, and now it's just like, oh, now we're going to dump it off because there's there's a lot of synchronicity behind it, you know.
Tesla's doing well in California. Definitely
Oh,
see a lot
yeah.
of them on the roads here.
Yeah, and
Like
I think
everywhere.
Tesla's going to remain a high impact auto manufacturer no matter what. It'll just be interesting to see how that plays out, because I feel like it's starting slowly to become less trendy to own a Tesla in certain circles in political spheres. It's like, I own a Tesla because of the association there. Well, it shouldn't be that. I don't think it should be that ridiculous of an association, but people are that ridiculous. People wear these symbols as their flags. They're like, oh, this is the party I'm on. This is the side I'm on. This is everything about me as a person. That's our consumerist culture, you know. So it'll be interesting to see how his antics do impact Tesla sales. It is affecting perceptions of his company, and there's calls for them to replace the CEO, which would make a lot of investors happy, I guess. But that seems kind of weird to think about, I think.
That makes me laugh. Like they're like, oh, I'm gonna get a Volkswagen because Elon Musk is too evil. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I wonder like how far it's gonna go, because at least he's saying he wants to go to Mars, but I get the feeling like if he could settle on just having, I mean,
Isn't there a Tesla?
Dorsey wants
already
Africa,
on
he
its
wants
way
Mars.
to Mars?
yeah. I don't want to buy anything from Kanye West, but I will buy some Hugo Boss.
yeah, right. I get that. Well, Boss got kind of weird though, like recently.
Recently,
In the last 10 years, it's not that recent, but it gets a little. I don't know if okay, it's getting better then. If this is where we're at, I could deal with this. I mean,
it looks a little bit fascistic, though. A little tiny bit of fascist in it.
Can someone help me? I've been trying to turn Fauciism into a thing somehow. I don't Faucism. You know what I mean? Faucism.
I think it works, yeah.
It's almost there.
Fauciism usually.
Well, the thing is that Fauci
Faucis.
means scythe, so
Yeah, that's interesting.
Apparently, I learned that Fauci's daughter worked for Twitter, and she just quit last year. She was a software engineer at Twitter.
Of course.
So during the time they were censoring, they were working together basically.
You know about Stalin's anti-Stalin club? So Stalin had a club that was secretly run by him. People didn't know he ran it, but it was the anti-Stalin club. And that way he could get money for people that wanted to support removing Stalin and use it to find more of the members that wanted to join the anti-Stalinist club, kill them, and use that money, save some of that money for himself also. He's a capitalist. He's a really
so
good way
the
to
plot of
describe Stalin.
1984 then.
He was the most capitalist communist ever.
Communism is state capitalism, right? So
that makes me that just paralyzes everything about my desire to join anything ever. So thank you, Andreas. I don't want to do anything.
Right. Well, be careful being a joiner, right? Like when people went to Occupy, that was the thing my dad always instilled into me, was like, why would you go to like get your photo taken? Like I knew that they had facial remote tracking technology way before it was open source. You know what I mean? Like obviously I imagined the technology back in the 90s before there was all the data on what was out. It's like I just assumed that what they had was, but by 2005, Google showed how if you take a photo of someone, they could photo recognize the person and find their social security number with Google within like 2.9 seconds, right?
Look,
and that's
it's all of us right now.
It's true. I mean, we're putting the thing is, everything that's been done, like the argument of facial recognition and blah blah blah, like we're doing it online constantly. They used to have to make profiles of people. Now people profile themselves. That's it. They just need to access your profile to get your entire life history and everything you do, and that's it.
Well, people are trained to tell, what specific boxes they fall into as soon as they introduce themselves.
Right.
So my buddy Maitland, who needs to come on this show soon, and he was telling me about some crazy things happening to him in Los Angeles. And I was looking into it, and I've mentioned a couple times how shocked I was that it was real. Now, I knew it wasn't that impossible, right? That there are drones that follow encampments and cars and things all over California. But it just seemed like a lot of money. But again, it's California. And I kind of knew that LAPD was working with these companies because I'd seen some of the companies that they work with in France, and I figured that they had to be using facial recognition software. But apparently, because of this, about 2 years ago, they said they're going to start setting tougher limits. There's been usage of facial recognition that has gotten out into private hands, right? So they're using this kind of technology, and they have no idea exactly who's using all the technology, but it's in some sort of a big data bank system. Software in an effort to identify criminal suspects nearly 2,000 times last year, 55% of the results in a positive match. So they're still like saying it's like not really that big of a deal, don't worry about it. But that's because they're using it so often, trying to track so many kinds of people that are not citizens, that are, migrant workers, like all over the United States. And a lot of the pictures are coming from drones, right? So they have these drones that are set up to picture an encampment and figure out if that same person has gone from one migrant caravan to another migrant caravan. And they're doing swarm technology to figure out where people move to all across the United States. The other one was Biden's cell phone initiative to give all the migrants cell phones. And obviously it's, the tracking devices, so that it's better than a passport, is you actually know where they're going and moving around all the time. And we're all like, oh, that's what we're doing. That's what we do all day. That's what we're just constantly being tracked.
Sounds like person of interest. I figure we're bound for a new, another Edward Snowden moment, where we're just going to have another massive leak of things that conspiracy theorists have been saying for years. And then it's just going to become fact that everyone's just going to be like, oh, it's fine. The government's been tracking us all this time, even if they told us they weren't. And now
how about that ArriveCan app?
That's important, to know, the forms in which government tracking is expressing itself is changing, but we could always be in control of what degree. But ever since before we had any phones, a lot of governments, a lot of times you had to own licenses for various activities. So I think pretty much since the start of the 1900s, the government has known a lot about its citizens. If you have an address, that means you're put on a certifiable map that the government has access to, and they have your address registered. Well, that's a lot of information. That's all you need in order to have someone's life in your hands, is to know their place of address. So, yeah, there's a lot. I think the forms in which it shouldn't be understated how much they've always been there, and just how the expression of that is just changing.
Right.
And I don't mean to politically lean either way, but I don't think a lot of people take that into account.
So you're telling me I can get this ArriveCan app and just expedite the process and make it more convenient to visit Canada? Sign me up, man. What do I gotta do? Just give them my DNA and my social security number and let them record my microphone?
You have to install the app, and if you don't, they fine you thousands of dollars.
Oh, they just at the beginning of this say that's not true anymore. They just changed that after COVID.
Okay.
ArriveCan is no longer required.
No longer required? Okay.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in high school, they had a person come in who was talking about he used to be a bank robber, and they were very, very lax with people coming into the country at the time. So he would fly a plane. He would rob in America and then fly to Canada and just hide out here. And so I figured that this was a major, major problem in the infrastructure. And so they just changed it so that if you wanted to come to the country, obviously you have to tighten security. It's part of border control, right?
Dude, I knew this Canadian guy, and he used to go across the border with a motorcycle, and often a different motorcycle every week, and he'd have these bags of sugar on either side, big white bags of flour, sometimes, other times sugar, sometimes cornstarch. And every time they would check it, and they'd be like, okay, I guess it's not cocaine. And eventually they figured out he was just stealing motorcycles. It was a brilliant move, really.
I heard a story of a guy who walks into a store, grabs a canoe, puts it on his shoulders, and just does a portage all the way out the store. And everybody sees this guy walking out with a canoe, but they figure if he's walking with a canoe, he must have paid for it.
If he's doing portage, I mean, if you're that confidence is, that's why crackheads get away with so much, I've noticed. That's why Gavin Newsom exists, basically.
No doubt. No arguments there.
It's terrifying. Yeah, Gavin Newsom really freaks me out, man. I mean, it's weird visiting California because it feels like, it just feels like the vampires. It's like Scar. It's like Scar and Lion King. Back to the Hamlet metaphor, that he's like, we just let them eat anything, eat all that you can. It's like, oh my god, bro.
The heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, like stop feeding children to and it scares. That's a very Gavin Newsom vibe, kind of thing. Do you think Person of Interest is kind of bullshit?
American Psycho vibe from him, but that's just me.
Same thing. American Psycho. Actually, here's the thing. He dresses like American Psycho, but I kind of like Patrick Bateman. I don't like Gavin Newsom. You know what I mean? He likes. I get it. We both like the same flavored ice cream, but other than that, I don't have anything in common with the man, and I don't think he really is like Patrick Bateman either, because Patrick Bateman is like really creative and like over the top, excels at certain things. You know what I mean? I don't think Gavin Newsom has any of that flair to him. He's just kind of a weirdo. I don't know. But Person of Interest is this show that's the idea that you can never be safe because they know everything. And is that maybe also just propaganda? Are they just trying to make you think that because you just said 50-50 chance that they're going to use facial recognition, it's not going to work. So maybe they're just trying to give us this false sense of that they really, they have control they don't have. What do you think? Oh, you're talking, but we can't hear you. You'll have to unmute yourself. Sorry.
My bad. Yeah, well, I think that this show has certain aspects that are probably true and certain that are fake, and it's part of control of systems, really, because if you put something as fiction, if you frame it as fiction, people will not believe that it's true. That's the best place to hide fiction, to hide the truth. It's in fiction because it's in plain sight, and everyone will just be like, "Oh, no, it's impossible that this is reality. There's a show about it, or there's a movie about it." Instead, they'll just be like, someone came up with it and wrote a story about it, and they'll actually use the show to be like, "Look, like you probably only believe that because you watched that show." And then you end off with no actual, people paranoid about it. But I mean, there's been movies about the government tracking what we're saying and what we're doing, and then that ended up being true. Person of Interest probably has some truth to it. It's just, if anything, it might even be a psyop in of itself, where they're like, well, we got to do some damage control. We've got to control how people perceive facial recognition and how they perceive AI, and so you get this,
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of the shows are just kind of deconditioning you to be accepting of, the way things they've decided make sense to work. And you're like, that doesn't make sense. But agreed, that is how they work a lot of the time. The Craziest Movie, especially.
I think we're a lot closer to Psychopaths than we are Minority Report, personally.
Yeah, that's true. Have you read Future Shock by Alvin Toffler?
No.
So one time I'm like driving by UCSC, University of California, Santa Cruz, and on the side of the road there's like a copy of Future Shock and 2 Cake CDs, and which goes really well together. And I think there was like some Atlas Shrugged in there as well or something, but definitely Future Shock. I was like, ooh, I haven't read this, and it's very interesting. Like I think one of the first points that it talks about is just in anthropology when there's too much change in such a short period of time. For instance, over a long period of time, people on parts of the Serengeti who were dyeing their clothes blue started to get blue pigment to their skin from the dyes, so that it's like a tanning. We have orange looking people from New Jersey. They had blue looking people, and we've kind of grown to be used to people from New Jersey. But they also went and eventually met people from Ireland who were blue. This is kind of a thing that gradually happens, and then you immediately meet someone blue and it's shocking. And too much blue people is hard to absorb in a society that's not used to that kind of ideas, right? So Future Shock is what we're headed into with Neuralink. The only way to really mitigate it is to have small populations that are generations ahead, so that the rest of the world's running on reruns that have been pre-selected and are safe. So they pick certain groups of the society and let them go through this first, and see what happens to them. And maybe it's 50,000 people in Czechoslovakia in 1968. And then eventually, if that works out, bring that to the rest of the world, but only the parts of it that they think are safe. Thoughts? Super industrial society, information overload. See, that's a good one right there.
I don't know. It's kind of like the opposite of what happens in Brave New World when they go to the reservation and they just can't cope. Of course, yeah. Of course,
I think we got something going on. I think.
Well, we need an illustration for Brave New World, is all.
I think modern life definitely evokes a lot of anxiety. Well, especially when you get into high population dense areas. Like, just in terms, we have, just hundreds of thousands of joules of kinetic energy just like zipping by in every street that we have, especially, in very dense streets, and they're all honking at each other. There's just so much sensory input, and a lot of it seems very removed from our genetic course throughout human evolution. They've really just come about in the past 100 years, and I think that's a really interesting thing to think about.
Sorry,
but
that picture right there is a lot.
Splice. It's from Splice.
Oh, that's adorable. Yeah, Splice with Adrian Brody. That was a movie. But this is what is going on, man.
This looks like AI.
Yeah, or some kind of a doll for really rich people.
Yeah, but that looks like AI generated.
Brutal. I mean, the idea of genetic modification, we keep kind of ringing back to the idea of Gattaca and everything, but I think it's important to remember that it could go really far out of control. For instance, humans like long necks in some cultures. It could become normal to be giraffe-like. Some humans might want to have no nose at all. I can imagine it could really quickly get out of hand, or just to the point where humans start to evolve to look super different is going to be really quickly. Once people start to do things that are super out of the norm, then it'll be more relatively easy to have just a bunch of different colors, blue people, yellow people, purple people, all that.
It's
I think
like in my Japanese anime.
Yeah,
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if we already have some places there's legends of islands where they do genetic research on them, and so you have a bunch of genetic freaks over there, like the hybrids and animal creatures.
Right. We brought it up earlier, but it's always interesting, and I'd like to get more deep into the genetically modified super soldiers in France, and that the French government and the Chinese government have in their Caribbean islands and in para-African, adjacent islands, because there are so many different places where they have full-on compounds of people that you'll never meet, and if you do, God help you. But maybe that's the thing. Amongst us, there might be people that are genetically modified in ways we don't realize already.
Isn't that the Universal Soldier?
Is it a movie, or what do you mean? Universal?
Yeah, it's a movie. I think it's Van Damme or something.
Yeah,
okay. Of course. Van Damme is totally about this. That's absolutely true. Right. Yes. All the movies he does, I haven't seen them all, but I know that that's a big thing that he's covered. I have to rewatch Universal Soldier. And this is Dolph Lundgren in it? Oh, man.
I think that's the second one. I know they made a few of them. He might be in the first one, or I'm not sure anymore.
I forget. It's been a long time for me too.
It's an important concept because people just don't realize how many places are completely isolated. Like, for instance, most people are never going to be in that one military compound in that state, whatever, that's 100 miles away from the city. And there's going to be one of those in every state, and there's going to be tons of them. And there are places where soldiers are being raised right now that they only interact with each other, and they believe what they believe, and they only watch the media they're allowed to watch, right?
Right. It ends off with a sort of Judge Dredd kind of situation, a RoboCop Judge Dredd sort of thing, and you're gonna have the robotic cops from the future who are trying to control everyone. It's gonna be pretty dark.
Do you think that that's going to go the other way also? I mean, the idea that regular humans, civilians, would be modded down in order to limit their lifespan or be kept more docile, right? This has been something talked about.
Harrison Bergeron kind of thing,
Like not producing
Harrison?
vitamin C?
Harrison Bergeron is a Kurt Vonnegut short story about a dystopian future where instead of elevating everyone is equalized by lowering the people that are superior to others. So let's say you're really strong, you're forced to have weights on your body at all times. If you're really smart, then you're forced to have things that blast sounds into your ears to make you forget your trail of thought. these sort of things. And so you have like the government creates a new position called the what is it? Trying to remember. The handicapper general. That's what it is.
Handicapper general.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's one of my favorite short stories. Yeah, you're probably not going to find anything actually valid of handicapper general. But
I don't know. I mean, the idea of equity is it's safer, right? So if you have multiple populations, it's less scary. Like if you've got an island full of people that you can test this on, and you know about in Denmark the law of Jante. In Denmark, instead of telling your children that they're special, you're supposed to tell them the laws of Jante. Like when you're 5, you're like, okay, so you're not to think that you're anything special. You're not to think you're as good as us. You're not to think you're smarter than us. You're not to convince yourself that you're better than us. You're not to think you know more than us. You're not to think you are more important than us. You're not to think you're good at anything. You're not to laugh at us. You're not to think anyone cares about you. You're not to think you can teach us anything, right? The law of Jante. So it's an equitable. But if everyone is afforded enough food, right? Like there's an abundance and non-scarcity in that sense, then it's a logical egalitarian. It's the way angels would be treated.
Right. Well, we're not angels. It requires a sort of like the omniscience or the supreme leader in order to actually like forego that right or that sort of the notion that you can actually know more than an authority figure shouldn't be impossible.
Do you think that that Pinocchio, when he turns into a donkey, right? Like, what is it saying about the wildness of man or Baphomet or beast that he's becoming an animal?
Well, I do think that's I think that's beast of burden sort of metaphor. So like the idea that you turn into a tool of the state, or you become functionally you lose your independence basically by giving into pleasure, because you become dependent on pleasure to live. And it creates that sort of weekly cycle of I'm going to work myself to death, be unhappy, and then on weekends fuck myself up, and then continue the cycle over and over. Like every weekend becomes Pleasure Island, and then during the week you become the donkey.
And then at the end of the day, when you're no longer useful, they send you off to the glue factory.
Pretty much. Or the belly of the beast. However you want to see it.
I appreciate all that. I can't contribute to it. I just appreciate it.
So yeah,
I feel like the burdens, it harkens to that idea of burden. It's interesting. That's like the lesson like Pinocchio is asking him, because the man's lost his son and he's got this he's changed. I forget who tells him that, but he's like, he's changed. Like, why? He has a burden. What's a burden? Well, it's something you have to bear that's very uncomfortable, but you have to do it.
Take on responsibility, You gotta do.
Why do you have to have burdens? Can't you have like in Pilgrim's Progress? The first thing they have to do is get rid of their burdens, right?
It's like, well, it's a weird dynamic, because we said that you shouldn't be the donkey, you shouldn't be that beast of burden, but you should bear a burden. So it's like a different type. It's
the thing is,
the burden you should bear isn't the one that's just involuntarily placed on you by your surrounding world. It should be the one that you choose. I guess that's the way you navigate yourself through that.
Right.
So in Pilgrim's Progress, he's got a burden, and he's kind of go on this journey to reach paradise, kingdom, heaven. And along the way, he's carrying all the stuff that he needs for his trip, and it's super heavy, and he's going to sink in the bog. And then he realizes you got to get rid of all of it, because you're not going to need any of it. Because along the way, you're going to sleep in the alberga's beds, and you're going to drink the soups with the monks, and you know what I mean? There's going to be stuff along the way. So all the little things that you thought that were actually helping you were tied to the negative burden itself as well.
Right. But that's the Deadwood thing, right? So you got to get rid of what doesn't serve you and move on to things that are actually important. And in Pinocchio's case, it was you got to rescue your father from the depths of hell. And the alternative is basically not making it out, And I think that sort of speaks to the necessity of sort of generational connection. Like we have forgone that, and so instead of turning to our families and to our clans for support and for the pillars of life, we turn to the state. Like in Del Toro, that was fascism. Just, hey, your parents are less important than the actual state. But
so there's another reason that is really interesting. He brings up fascism, right? So when you think about fasces in the traditional sense, let me get the picture. There we go. So what is fasces? What is the symbol of fasces? And especially if you're Pinocchio.
Bundles of sticks. So the fascism is bundles of sticks. Is it comes from Latin, and I mean it literally just means like sticks together become stronger than individually.
Right. And fagitus, right? So faggots. And so the idea of Pinocchio, who's a fagitus, and that if they're working together in fascism, that the fascistic youth will be the strong state because they're all together. Whereas also there's the metacosm. That's the metacosm. The microcosm can be the Pinocchio himself being a full being. That he's in line, all of the parts of Pinocchio, he's in coordinates with himself, and so he is his own fascia. Fascia being the muscle, right? So there's just, especially if you watch the movie, probably from, I have to imagine, in Spanish. I haven't seen it yet outside of the English version. The metaphor probably shines really strongly. I feel like the wording probably is more clear in Spanish what he's talking about in terms of what it is that makes up Pinocchio, and that he wants the flesh, he wants the fascia, and they're trying to make him into the fascistic youth. Do you think, or no? What do you think? Is that too much? Too crazy?
I mean, I think it connects, but of course, like we can go very, very far into this and
yeah, I mean, so you've been pretty deep in it. What do you think Del Toro is trying to say with the new Pinocchio? Like, what is the message?
I think it's beware. First of all, beware of pleasure and beware of groupthink. Beware of the idea that just because there is something that is normative in society does not mean that it's the right way, or that it's the way to be a real person, and so I think that this is actually Del Toro's way of subverting the Netflix wokism, basically, because woke fascism is sort of like the idea that you have you can control the way that they perceive each other, the way that they articulate each other. Like modern day, we have like a notion that if you use the definition of female as like woman and female are interchangeable, then people go like, you're a fascist, because that doesn't include men. And so it's a very strange sort of retelling of what actually matters, and the enforcement of that as like a new way of being like, oh, you have to obey or else you're literally the enemy. So it's kind of like it's rainbow fascism. I don't know what else to really say. So yeah. I think that he really manages to turn that all on its head, while not being so obvious that it'll actually piss off the woke crowd, because they're going to be like, oh yeah, like Nazis are bad, so I agree with this movie, but they don't also realize that he's also talking about the fascist within as well as the fascist without.
Yeah, the last CEO of Twitter, like there was that video that came out that he said, "Yeah, we're all commie as fuck." It was,
I've
yeah,
seen it.
That was interesting.
Right. So I mean, it's a criticism of authoritarianism first and foremost, and that sort of like Pleasure Island can manifest. I mean, it's saying that Pleasure Island can manifest in multiple ways. It's kind of like, there's multiple caves, there's multiple chambers to the cave of Plato, and if you go and be like, oh, this one is not, this Pleasure Island is okay, but not that one, you're gonna fall into the same trap.
Yeah, that's.
Do you think Plato's cave harkens to the idea of a hollow earth at all, or is it just straight up, the television, or both?
I mean, look, I think that's meant to be a metaphor for the psyche, and I guess the global psyche can be factored into that. So maybe there's a hollow earth connection. It depends what people mean by hollow earth, because hollow earth can be metaphysical as well as physical. So like, maybe hollow earth is is deeper than just literally being like an Earth that's hollow. Who knows?
When you say
Yeah,
metaphysical hollow earth, what do you mean by that?
I mean, like maybe like a spiritual aspect, or like an aspect of reality that is not necessarily what we would regard as
Holographic
what we would
earth.
understand. Holographic.
Yeah.
Thing.
I get the feeling that the whole universe is just on like an iPad projecting like this, and that we feel like we're at depth because that's part of the game. Kurt,
Come
you're
on,
about to say something. I'm sorry.
Bro, it's on a turtle.
No,
We're
go
as
on.
real as the Earth is. Okay, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
With
This does make more sense than anything else, though. Really.
But yet you have to have the 4 elephants holding it up on top of the turtle.
There they are.
Yeah,
there they are. Don't worry. I'm not.
He's got you covered.
That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy.
It wouldn't make sense without the elephants. Come on.
Yeah. Like, come on. But then again, like elephant, mountain, volcano, right? Like the when you look at Stellium's work and you start to think about Mount Elephant, right? There is some really weird stuff going on with the idea that there's fossilized giant megaliths, megafauna that lived in the earth.
Stellium 7.
Yeah, Stellium's work is great.
Kaijus.
Yeah, kaijus, indeed.
We're on the bodies of kaiju.
Legends and stories.
What's a kaiju?
Oh, kaiju is Japanese giant monsters. So like Godzilla's a kaiju, King Kong's a kaiju.
Yeah, in Yu-Gi-Oh, they're an archetype.
Actually, Del Toro made a story about kaiju, Pacific Rim.
Mothra, my favorite kaiju.
Pacific Rim also is really interesting in that it goes into the minds of the pilots. So there's some interesting synchronicities there.
Right.
Doesn't it
Where's-
go into like a hollow earth too, down like in the center or something?
That was King Kong. No, in Pacific Rim, it was the bottom of the ocean. There was a rift to another dimension. In King Kong versus Godzilla, they had the hollow earth thing. So all the kaiju live in the hollow earth, basically, which is, it harkens back to the original ideas where you had like dinosaurs there and the giants of the past eras.
Oh, you should watch Big Man Japan, by the way. It's one of my favorite mockumentaries.
Big Man Japan.
It is Earth made of kaiju. Stellium
cool.
7's doing some evidence towards that.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a big part of this idea. If the world's made up of living creatures to some extent, I know it's hard to kind of imagine how the back of a giant turtle, but again, the idea of the continents moving around, the land moving around, that maybe we're on living things anyway, or that a lot of the sediment and soil is growing on the back of it. Is that a thing? Do they have? I know, like
there's plenty of actual animals that you can actually see wildlife growing on them, right? So like they have like entire ecosystems on their back, and if you just take that scale and you pump up that scale, like who knows how insignificant we are on the back of something greater, like we don't really notice, and we wouldn't be able to notice if we actually were on a cosmic turtle that is like the size of however many galaxies or solar systems or whatever.
The Futurama episode of Bender and the little civilization on him as he flies through the universe before finding God.
Sloths are pretty nuts because they have like whole communities of bacteria, microbes, and parasites and things, but symbiotically living in like fecal matter. They don't wash off, which, I mean, I try to stand up for sloths in general because they have high energy and people think they're lazy, and I disagree, but they are a little dirty, but in the sense that they're growing stuff, you know what I mean? It's part of this whole, it's better that the thing that's living on them is eating poop than them, right? Or something.
Yeah.
Well, the way that they transfer that from parent to child is exactly by eating the poop. So I do not.
Well, okay, but like take that to the metaphor of like you're living on manure on the back of a turtle. Okay, so just remember that, and the whole time that's what we're eating. We're eating whatever is growing.
Actually, they do that.
Whatever extracted the best parts out of the manure.
In the movie Mind Game, they write a story that's basically that, where they go onto a planet and have to survive off the poop of a specific alien creature.
We're right back to ectolife, where they start to take the bioreactor and enzymatic recycling of the fecal matter.
This just looks too creepy.
I mean, just imagine though, this is like Attack of the Clones, but with cute little babies.
Dude, that room there, that room, it made me think. Well, obviously we talked about the Matrix, but that kind of looks like the arena. No, it looks like the well, it looks like almost like a gladiator arena, but like the one in Squid Game. Yeah, that one. You know. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
Do you see parallels there, or is that just me?
Dude, definitely. I mean, it is a giant warehouse kind of thing. And oh yeah, there's that whole thing with the children and everything. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the thing is that with 30,000 babies that are not born with human rights because they're not born of natural births, which that means imagine what they're able to do with an entire community of these babies. And I don't just mean like sacrifices or organ transplants, which is they probably do that with enough people with legal births anyway. I imagine that they're going to train them with whole new languages, chips in their minds to have non-Lacanian psychic interactions, right, to replace language and circumstances, build up new forms of communication, and how that's going to affect the mind, and then back and forth with just MRI echo, you know, so that they're able to train based on the parts of the brain that they're trying to use binaural entrainment to provoke into just being utilized by whatever reason in order just to grow the brain bigger. I mean, this is something you can force to happen, right? And this is kind of that Pygmalion. This is that idea where, you know, Pygmalion's a joke for so many people because they're like, oh, she's a dumb blonde, you know, that's not, or she's a Cockney, or whatever you need to hear to yourself. She's an Etruscan, she's not really a Greek, whatever it was at the time. It's a Pinocchio, but it's us. Like, that is us, and we're on the verge of being Pinocchioed into whatever Neuralink in the transhumanist agenda is allowing for. You know, that is the Stargate that's opening.
They never cover it in the really shitty movie, but in Battlefield Earth, the aliens that invade the planet, they actually modified themselves into these evil creatures, and it's hypothesized that they would have been like peaceable at one point. So yeah, kind of a
just made
there.
them crazy because they got too strong and too testosteronal. Yeah, it's like the 80s steroid movement was like moving too fast.
Don't bother watching the movie though. It's really
my girlfriend loves this movie.
I love the movie. Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies.
Every scene is at an angle for some reason. I don't.
That's one of the things I love. I love that I loved how weird. Like, so I don't get it. Scientology knows how to make movies, and every 180 rule they broke. It just I felt like it had to have been a discerned movement. There's no way it was an accident. So we need to know what they're trying to say about Dutch angles. It must have been about the House of Orange.
The book is actually competent. Like, it's actually fairly well written, and I don't understand how they got such a crappy movie out of it. It's just
because it's all made by it's a religious like movie. It's basically a Bible film. You know, these are Scientologists making movies about their true faith. And yeah, L. Ron Hubbard did amazing work on the book.
Are you serious? This is actually about Scientology?
Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard book, yeah.
Yeah. Who wrote the most books ever of anybody, right?
I never knew that.
He beats Shakespeare for existing, you know, and he's got a lot of important stuff. I think if you also look into, was it L. Ron Hubbard, Aquarius music?
The real question is did their following go up or down after this movie came out?
I mean, Scientology was already kind of on a weird sway by the 90s in a lot of ways. I think the thing is, people made it seem weirder than it is. It's weird because the parts about Scientology, like aliens and everything, that's not that weird, especially in California. You have Unarius cult and weirder things, right? Or not cult. I always say that. I don't think they like it when I do that. Academy of Science. Sorry, guys. I mean, I like your religion. I really do. I respect these guys. They're adorable and nice people.
Save.
No, but really, they're nice people. They are. They're like adorable. Like look at this. Like, look at these people. They're the Midwestern equivalent, but they're from California, and they're this idea that they're kind of like the subgenius, but they're a little bit more Aquarian, and yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of groups as interesting as them that believe. I mean, there's the Raelians and things like that, but they were in touch with Reagan and Disney and all these different people that were the celebrity group. So people think of Scientology a lot, and I think the Disneyer version really it is the Unarius cult, Academy of Science.
You got Tesla up there.
Yeah, and then what's her name? Something. That lady. If you watch the videos, dude, they're so funny.
She kind of looks like the priestess in Akira.
Dude, this is the most important video to watch. Creativity for Ravam from the Unarius. It is hard to accept, but my deep sorrow, I think, this guy right here, and he's gonna take me on your spaceship, woo, and then she's there, and this is what's gonna happen in 1998. So guys, get ready. But we're all going to get to go on this Unarius spaceship, and if we're members, and they're going to come in. Actually, the spaceship's going to go inside of your heart and mind, and you're going to be able to be part of the Unarius. So, I mean, that's pretty sweet.
So the
Sounds
spaceship
like
we made is the Friends on the way or something?
The Care Bear's there.
I think the spaceship has to do with the ability to contain the vessel in general. So you think of the Solomon Square, and a lot of this comes back to the idea that Solomon Square is... magic is a spaceship. It's a way of trapping, multidimensional energy inside of a single dimension, so that it can be.
Is it a
cast.
Merkaba? Okay, no, this is part of it. This is Sigil.
Right, sigil magic in general. But Solomon's Square is this one, right? So you've got the
It's
northeast,
really
southwest.
Right, so you summon it again,
no,
you
like
cut it out.
blueprints.
Yeah, well, this looks like technology to me. Like if you look
Right.
at this, it looks like
100%.
It's a spaceship. This is a spaceship, and this is in order for you to travel or to bring something through your Stargate. So often, what will happen is you'll have a witness in the triangle, and then you'll have a demon brought in the center of the four, as above, so below hexagrams, and in the square that's summoned, you torture a thing and say you're not allowed to leave until you give me what I want, and that is what the Sandman's about, right? The first
that's
edition
exactly
of the
what they're doing.
Sandman. He's trying to trap death, but he ends up trapping
Well, I think they're part
death's.
they're part of a Masonic
Dream.
order.
He traps Dream instead of death.
They're part of some sort of a Blavatsky Thelema group, some sort of
Yeah.
Tibetan lodge or something like that. The cult trapping Sandman.
This was actually a pretty epic series.
Honestly, the book is so fucking good that it hurts me to watch it. I love Sandman.
Yeah.
I have Sandman tattooed on my arm. I've had it for years.
Oh, that's
now.
awesome.
And I just this whole movie, this whole show.
Show me your Sandman tattoo. What? Where's that at? I love Sandman.
I'll probably just add to it.
It's in an intimate place too. I get it. Oh, that's awesome. Dude, and so when you flex your muscles, his hair gets bigger. That's brilliant.
It makes him move his eyebrows. But yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
just Sandman is one of the most powerful stories I've ever read, and it's brilliant. It's just that the show they just arbitrarily woke it up. It was already super woke. It was already one of the most inclusive, diverse, just greatest stories, and then they just no, let's just undermine every male character all the time and make it about black women for some reason, and that's pretty much all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just luckily the show is the book is so great, and it's like Shakespeare, so it's kept to the words, so that makes at least it's saved in that sense. But yeah, why would you sacrifice the opportunity to look at these pictures and to read the Sandman? It's just so amazing. Even if you just you could listen to the audio narration, like a book on tape kind of, but it's got special effects and sound effects and everything like that. You could listen to it while you read the pictures, and you can,
Well,
so
honestly,
whatever it takes, America.
for real, if the show captures even 10% of how good the book is, it's a masterpiece. So go for it,
Right.
watch it. But
I mean,
the
just
audio,
all of the
audiobook-
artists involved.
The audiobook is probably one of the greatest of all time as well. So the audiobook is just
P. McAuliffe, right?
Oh.
Is that right? P. McAuliffe was the artist for Sandman, one of the main Sandman artists.
One of the at the start. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, so many great things in the Sandman, and the stories are so important. The idea of metaphysical reality, that we're able to shift our realities. There's a story about a time when cats were bigger than men, and then men were getting eaten by cats all the time and kept as pets. And finally, the humans said, "Hey, let's all dream tonight that we're bigger than cats." And then when they woke up into the dream, they just stayed that way.
The last episode of Sandman is like it's the closest to the actual books because it's separate from the rest of the story, and so they're standalone. And it's the cat story and the author story, and just they're fucking amazing. Yeah, this is my great Solomonic conjuration meme.
That's pretty good. That's way better. I should use this one for the explanation. Yeah, so you torture the one in the square, and
I love it. I love this meme so much.
Sandman also predicts a lot. It tells you about real things that happen, like these grand lodges that are doing these rituals to try to capture demons. But it also talks about where the world's going, right? And it ends with a reset, right? Like the reset's coming. It's going to be a reset of consciousness. And so even the symbol dream is going to be reset. Everything all of the symbols we have will last, but the meanings behind them will disappear. Maybe not all the symbols, but like the 7 endless at least.
Yeah, well, they just restructure, right? So you can't you can't really kill God. You're just gonna redefine it, basically. So in Sandman reincarnates basically and becomes a a white version of himself, whiter. But it turns out, maybe he'll be black. Who knows? Maybe Netflix by the end of the series they'll be like, look, it's a little black. Well, actually, it is a little black boy, if I'm not mistaken, in the story.
That's fine. I'll take it.
Hey, look, it's their story to tell, but I think that it's a miss to make everything Netflix formula.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. It's the Netflixing. I read this yesterday, but I think it's important also. And I'm in terms of Kurt, you were raised, Christian and in a kind of conservative background, and so there's a lot of things you might have said in your life that are like, hey, I don't want to be part of this church anymore because of the way these people are. I don't know. I'm not speaking for you necessarily, but a lot of people have said something like that. They're like, I don't know, Christianity is not all it's cracked up to be, right? And atheism, a lot of people have gone and become atheists because of that, but similarly, atheism is not all it's cracked up to be. I mean, Dawkins has proven this over and over again. He's such a pwnable little man. So there's this idea that through atheists and nihilists, a new reset of consciousness, a new kind of absolute understanding will emerge, right? If we have all of this horrible stuff and this complete rejection of everything, that eventually atheism and Christianity both are destroyed in the wake of whatever the new thing is. But what do you think it is that we're going to create? What do you think that we're supposed to believe? What's the next human condition?
I think there's been some commentary on this. I can't really name names off the top of my head over the past century. And really, I think it was up the alley of some of the idealists, I think, that have made some commentary on this. I think some linked to de Beauvoir. I think one of her close, so someone related. That's all I know. That's from what my recent listening has led me towards. And so I think some of them would say that ideally religion has been put in a bad spot over the past century, and we kind of have we almost have a situation that's been a little bit of religion versus the state, and I would say also symbolism versus literalism in a way. I think in a way we're being conditioned to get away from our symbols, but I think it's possible that we can't interpret things without some sort of base symbolic reference. And I feel like you need to really dig deep into the subconscious of people and observing their behaviors over a certain set of time in order to realize that, like, it all comes back to symbolic interpretation. So I don't think things like atheism or Christianity will be destroyed, because I think we've gotten so accustomed over the past century to the bad parts about them and the bad attachments to the things that we've been taught and the programming that has come along with different systems of thought. I think we can definitely understand the perspective of religion over the past 100 years or the past 200 years or in 2,000 years, and we can make good decisions and we can decide essentially what religion becomes. And I don't think we can eliminate religion. If we eliminate religion, then the state takes over, and you just replace it with a different mode of thought. And I think that's what a total statist society would be, in a sense, an atheistic society. I'm not saying atheism doesn't have certain modes of thought that we need to consider. I'm saying we need to be careful at all points, but I think we can understand where tradition serves a function. So I don't think Christianity or any other religion is going to die out, at least right away. I think they just take different forms. An example of this, I think you can look at different forms that have emerged in different regions. I think pretty much Ragnarok is actually designed to be essentially the same exact thing as what what they say, the tribulation in Christianity, the whole Revelations thing. Like, I think virtually they're actually supposed to be secretly the same thing. The big great reset, but they're the same thing. But I think we've taken the concepts too literal for those things to represent just a singular point in time, and I don't think they are. I think those are supposed to be viewed as constant processes. The idea of death and rebirth, it's a singularity that's detached from time. So we can see the constant cycle of death and rebirth in everything that we do. We see it in our political process all the time. If we view it in that lens, it's like, okay, we're not constantly afraid of a singular point in which everybody dies. Essentially, we are seeing the process of our psychological reality give way to being destroyed and recreated all the time. And that transitions back into what culture we perpetuate and what things are okay. Like 50 in the 90s, or maybe in the 80s, you could get away with having a sitcom where casual racism was just okay. That's not okay anymore. Like in Three's Company, there's an episode I watched where he just slaps one of his roommates' asses. That's not the reality that we've created. There's been a sort of Ragnarok that resulted in that not being okay anymore. But that transitions into everything. Sorry, if that made sense. Hopefully that made sense.
But yeah, the world keeps on dying and being reborn over and over and over. Right? That's the Phoenix cycle. And
yeah,
so here we are being reborn constantly, and who knows how it'll end. Maybe it's like the thing is that there's eschatological sort of drive for some of these groups where they want to provoke something of the end of the world, because especially like the religious groups where they want the return of the king or God or Jesus, or depends on the religion, and so they want to provoke Ragnaroks, and so it seems like we're getting more and more frequent. Like it's like there's an acceleration of that cycle of the death and rebirth, and we're getting into like micro cycles of death and rebirth at this point. Who knows?
Yeah. I think part of it's nihilism, and I don't think that's a good force. I think if we decide we have any sort of individuality or soul, then we automatically reject nihilism and the forces of nihilism, and we allow things. We don't become accelerationists, we become preservationist, and that's what I would say. I'm a preservationist. I was like, if there's anything good about the world, you protect that. You protect everything that's good and worth keeping, and that's the world that you choose to help bring about. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going from this point, but yeah.
Man, I mean, it's true, because it's like, what are we even supposed to protect or save, because so much of it's supposed to fade away with time, and it's only supposed to be important for us right now, and then the next generation, something else is going to be important for them anyway. So we're constantly like, oh man, we got to save this thing so we really cared about it. I know kids are probably, maybe you loved ATVs, and then the kid doesn't want to ride an ATV. It is what it is, right?
Yeah, I think the idea is to protect consciousness. Like, you can have a variance in how you define consciousness, I suppose, and that might mean something different to each person. But I think that's ultimately what it's about. Like, if we have to look deeply underneath all the layers of human thought, or our own consciousness. I think that's what it's about. Like, oh, we want to protect that thing. We want to protect that thing that's constantly evolving and developing new things within within its own beauty. You know, we're the universe experiencing itself, and we cannot imagine the universe not experiencing itself. So we want to protect whatever that is as long as possible. Even if humans evolve into a totally different species, maybe we'll be more thoughtful and more conscious, you know? Like that's happened to a degree already, and that's probably going to keep happening. But yeah, I think that's why nihilism loses. That's why nihilism is the dark side, is because you can't overcome that force of wanting to preserve the general consciousness of the universe experiencing itself. Yeah, experiencing itself. Yes.
Man, I mean, nihilism comes back in again. So that's the thing, because Albert Pike talking about nihilism. You know, we're supposed to probably. I notice this more and more because I'm around people that get upset a lot, you know, and it's hard to be as upset about everything all the time. And I get to be, because it's like you don't want people hurting kids. I think we all have a common denominator where it's like you don't want them to stop hurting kids. But,
is Scam Bankman Fraud a nihilist? Because he's getting punished finally, so that's some good news.
I don't care. I really care. I could care so much less about anything than Sam Bankman. I wish to God that maybe the people that actually got away with the tens of billions of dollars that, you know, like today the Democrats saying, oh, we don't have very much information on how that finances got to us. Like, you know, like do something about that instead of just the fake hippie fall guy. Not to say that, you know, but hey, what? So now he's gonna get raped in prison, and I'm supposed to be super enthusiastic? I don't know. It's not. I just don't. I'm not stoked on it. It doesn't make me feel good. And in general, I feel like we're not getting the money back that was stolen, and that money is it's going to the anti-Stalinist club.
Dude, Pleasure Island. Pleasure Island.
Right.
That's what crypto is. It's Pleasure Island. That's what.
Well, you know, in the post-Epstein era, it's hard to trust anything that, like, any of the justice systems for corruption. It's really hard to like trust anything they say about it or how they treat their criminals or whatever. You know, like this is just the Wall Street collapse all over again. Find a scapegoat, and your scapegoat is going to take everything, or you know, kill him in prison, and no one can ask any questions.
And a major like way to grab a bunch of the crypto market so that you own and centralize the economy. I mean, it's such a scary time, and this is the kind of thing that happens right before a major world war. So definitely freaks me out. The guy being thrown in jail doesn't mean anything, and it means even less if he did, because if they threw him in jail, it basically means he doesn't know that much. The things he knows, if he gets killed, then that means he really knew anything at all. And if he didn't, then like I wouldn't be surprised, because they can do all of this without him knowing anything.
But like, come on, the guy stole $8 billion. Like,
okay,
there's
good
got
for
to
him.
be some
right?
accountability.
I don't know. I don't know if I believe in accountability. I mean, in a post-truth world, postmodern society, I don't know if I believe in accountability. What are dollars? $8 billion? What is that? And he stole dollars, but that's basically
accountability, eh?
There isn't. And like the idea that this person is going to be held accountable, that $8 billion is going to go back to the people it was stolen from, that's at a fundamental level, that's not true. I mean,
no. Well, the whole point, if they don't do it, like if the government doesn't say, okay, we're going to actually prosecute crimes like this, all you're going to end up with is vigilantism.
Well, yeah, and that's the point.
People doing the crimes.
That's the point. So what they're doing is they're making they're doing everything at once. So they're stealing all the money. They're setting it all up. They're making a statement at the same time. It's the same reason that they, you know, you have bank robbers it costs so much more to go after a bank robber than a bank robber could ever get away with that's in a bank. And they know this. And they don't do it to protect the bank. They do it to protect the banking system. Because if people started to think it was possible to rob a bank, then they would, right? If they could, you know. And so they put all the resources, and this is what they did with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. They put all the resources they could with the Pinkertons into outspending the money. They're like, I don't even care about the money at this point. I just want to catch these guys, you know. And that's what they've done to crypto. They've basically taken a full-on assault on the economy in order to get in there and see what everybody's doing.
Well, there's that whole process actually, if you look at something like the stock Carvana and how garbage of a company it was, and the CEOs sold all their stock when the stock was like 270, and the company's about to go bankrupt. It went from like being 270 to like $3 a share. That's basically FTX. That's the same. I view it as the same shit. Well, people buy into an asset, they want it to go up, but the entire thing's fraudulent. It doesn't have any real value. That's exactly what's happening at something like Carvana, but we've made sure to make avenues where that kind of extortion is perfectly legal. Even that's exactly.
Hold on, Bernie. That looks way too interesting. We're gonna go to that and focus on it. But really quickly, I want to also finish the thought of Kurt and what it's connected to limited hangout. Go ahead, keep going, Kurt.
Oh yeah. Well, we said that, and I wanted to state as well. I'll be real quick. Within crypto and how many people I've talked to that are like crypto stans. Sorry, Bernie, not you. I'm saying a lot of people in my life that
He's crypto alchemist. It's different.
Yeah, they refuse to approach any other sort of investment strategies. It's just all been crypto. I think there's deep levels of nihilism inside the people that I talk to.
They don't trust the world, right?
Well, it's fascinating way, but also sad. It's like they view their lives as being so bad and so unworthy and so self-punishing that they need some sort of lottery ticket to save them from their particular predicament that they're in. And that's how they've treated crypto. And I've watched a lot of people lose a lot of money, and that's the sad, depressing part. It's like, and also that's the depressing part, I think, of American society in general, is like we're constantly making people depressed about their situations and making them buy into something that represents some sort of beacon of hope that ends up just ironically destroying their hope in the end. And I think that's a lot of what's gotten into like the current crypto. And I think, well, that's evidence of something deeper and maybe cyclical that goes on in society.
What you're describing sounds like learned helplessness.
Yes, lots of learned helplessness. And that's, I think, the sad part. But yeah, I didn't mean to go on for too long about that. But I think it's, very sad and depressing thing that we need to be aware of as a society.
I'm going to read this thing from Ben Gertzel, who I had on the show a couple weeks ago. I'm going to try to go through it quickly just before we do limited hangout. Category
awesome.
theory. He was, well, this is not the right one. Hold on. Where's the one on the dude? On Sam, if I find it. Hold on. Ben Gertzel. Sam. Okay, so he was, trying to figure out the connections with all this. He's like, I never met SBF nor had any doings with his business, but being around such a crypto world and the rationalist, effective, altruistic world, I almost feel like I knew the dude. Dr. Volt's thread, SBF, is excellent. My analysis bears a lot of overlap with this. One difference I can see between him and the typical Wall Street type financial scammer, I suspect SBF generally did feel like he was doing some risky, dodgy business maneuvers for the good of the world. I don't know if he was aware of the full scope of financial shell gamery going on between, by the way, FTX and Alameda, between FTX and Alameda, but I'd be surprised if they weren't quite aware of this to some extent. However, he probably estimated the odds were high that the finances would work out in the end. Money would be borrowed from customer accounts to trade, right? Because money is just made up. And then customer accounts would be refreshed with percentage of the profits. And he figured that this was worth taking the risk because the world would be a better place if he had huge piles of money to deploy according to his rationalist brilliance and funnel into the people he thought were going to help things. Folks like SBF are not after luxury goods and posh lifestyle, though they certainly don't want to work in a regular boring job and take some boss's orders. He wanted to save the world, and perhaps with suppressed inner doubts felt himself supremely qualified for this role due to his smarts and ambition and rationalist creed. Most likely, he greatly underestimated the odds of the financial shenanigans ending in disaster. His aspirations to rationality fell short of the reality, as with most of us. I see extreme hubris, overweening with will to power, genuine desire to bring broad benefits to the world, not so much personal greed and profound lack of self-understanding. Rationalists like SBF will Bayesian calibrate their mental confidence estimates, aiming to turn themselves into super-rational reasoning engines, yet foster hugely barely questioned blind spots in their basic ethics, self-image, and world understanding. I mean, that's, etc., basically the point, What is a limited hangout?
New word I discovered today.
So, limited hangout, partial hangout, tactic used in media relations, perception and management, politics, and information management. The tactic originated as a technique in the espionage trade. According to the former special assistant to the deputy director of the CIA, Victor Marchetti, a limited hangout is a spy jargon for a favorite and frequently used gimmick of the clandestine professionals. When their veil of secrecy is shredded and they can no longer rely on a phony cover story to misinform the public, they will resort to admitting, sometimes even volunteering, some of the truth, while still managing to withhold the key and damaging facts in the case. The public, however, is usually so intrigued by the new information that it never thinks to pursue the matter further. While used by the CIA and other intelligence organizations, the tactic has become popularized in the corporate and political spheres. Interesting. So, just phrase coined in the following exchange. President, do you think you think we want to go this route and let it all hang out, so to speak? Dean, well, it isn't really that, Haldeman. It's a limited hangout. It's a modified limited hangout. Well, it's only the question of the thing hanging out, publicly or privately, says the president. Okay. So we tell them about Watergate, but we don't tell them about what really matters. We just tell them that, and everyone's like, oh.
It's like a form of scapegoating, like you project a certain idol and then that thing gets sacrificed instead of the actual thing that is problematic.
In other words, it's so much worse than we think it is.
What's the guy called? The bull running, and he's got the red thing, what's he called? Oh my gosh.
Luchador. The luchador?
Luchador. No, wait, isn't that no, that's not right.
No, that's a wrestler.
Yeah, dog.
Oh yeah, fuck.
Bullfighter. They're so cool in the clothes they wear. Come on, dude. That's what I gotta wear. I'm gonna eventually, when I go to the Oscars and they invite, I'm gonna wear that outfit. But the red, so I think it's the red in front of the bull. That's what it is. Watergate. It's the limited hangout. Like you look for that. It's the veil. You go for the
red
veil.
Carpet behind the veil.
Follow the red carpet.
It's the Matrix telling you about the Matrix.
Bernie, what is the
I am also ready for tacos, Emily.
Yeah.
So I at first I was seeing these pictures starting to float around. I'm like, are they AI generated? But supposedly they're from somebody, a retired U.S. Navy guy's collection from the 1912s. But I wanted to look into it more. And then just while we went live, John Levi came out with the new video going exactly into this. So I was like, let's play a little bit of it. I won't put the sound on just in case it's copyrighted, but apparently these are real. They're not AI generated.
Wow.
They're from an actual U.S. guy's private collection from the 1912s from Antarctica.
Dang, look, it's like Chinese statues and stuff. Interesting.
Right? Like, it's
gotta watch John Levi's new video.
Right, exactly. Look at this.
Wow.
Like, is that Santa Claus? Santa Claus, Tartarian in Antarctica? What's going on here?
Yeah, there's definitely some Slavic
Santa
and Asian
Claus and the
all kinds of
Sumerian
things.
ant person, like
Ant person, ant woman. There was definitely boobs on ant person. I saw that.
Yeah, ant woman. Yeah. So what is going on the other side of the
Go
ice
back
wall,
to like near the beginning, like a third of the way in. I think there was further back. Yeah, around here you start to see there's some of these. Wow, some giant bones. Maybe they're whale bones. I don't know. But then there was that's columns. I think it's right after this you get to the columns. Move forward a little bit.
Yeah, the columns were also quite interesting. Oh, come on.
Is it right behind there? Oh, there you go. Yeah. I mean, I definitely get Superman Fortress of Solitude vibes. That's crazy.
Yeah, right? No doubt.
Thoughts in Antarctica,
So
Kurt?
it's something to look into, but supposedly they are not AI generated. They're from an actual Navy dudes.
What do you think? Could there be a civilization that's lost under ice in Antarctica? Kurt, what do you think?
Skin.
That'd be awesome.
Just finding the remains would be cool.
Yeah, right? That would be good. But do you think it's possible that underneath there's so much ice, there's like,
I'm hoping for it.
What do you guys
You
think?
like that's like probably one of the most indestructible things is like the huge ice layers in like Antarctica and the Arctic, you know.
But we know it was green, and we know it had like marsupials, and it's starting to defrost,
Yeah.
and they're finding all the kinds of fauna that live there.
Oh, that would actually damage a lot of it because you know, the water expanding into the joints. You could end
Yeah,
up with it all collapsing the moment it thaws.
Dude, like I'm 90% sure there's a very significant amount of undiscovered sea life, and I'm pretty sure most, you know, aquamarine scientists would say the same thing. Like, yeah, we have no idea what kind of shit is under the water.
So,
Like,
in Antarctica, underneath the ice, you actually find very similar not plants, but animals as you do in the very deep oceans. So, yeah, and every time we go down there, basically, we discover something new. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff we don't know on Earth.
I think we should do a Xirtus voyage to Antarctica at some point
guys,
in
let's
time.
go.
But first, we've got to do one to Malta.
Malta is nice. See the Popeye. I do think, though,
Just
if the
so
ice melts and
ominous,
things
Tim,
collapse,
playing the Hypogean.
it wouldn't be too surprising if we lost everything. And you guys remember the UN meeting room, right? It looks like, where's the Antarctica? There we go. Let it load. Let it load. Okay, so they all meet around this trapezoid, which represents Antarctica, and they've got trees planted around the center, and then it's grassing out from the middle. So, I mean, there's a plan. The UN can move there, right? That's the only people allowed there, really. Pretty scary.
Shout out Bikini Truther Super Sticker $2
Oh.
to Mr. Xirtus.
Thank you so much, Lady Kate.
And there was 2 you missed at the beginning.
I did get sticky marks. Sticky marks, thank you very much. I brought up Future Shock because of you, and I think she talked about the bloody owl in one of my trees. I don't know. That's horrifying. Yeah, owls are interesting. We're going to have to do a deep dive in the owls, but as we're 2 hours deep, let me just say, Crypto Alchemist, guys, go look at his stuff. Make sure you subscribe. He's got this video going on live right now. It's this video, the Owlifornia, and we're doing some MKCANADA stuff next week as well, and some real science coming up, so... John Hutchinson, man.
Indeed. I also got, I believe, an interview with Paul Cook and Autodidactic coming up here in about 4 or 5 hours' time. And it might need to be rescheduled, but if not, if it does, it'll be, I think, tomorrow, but it should still be going on. It might just be an hour long is the only thing with Paul Cook and Campbell. That would be a lot of geopolymer and good things.
Guys, you're going to want to see that. And then also make sure you go to Burning Stage Saga and you subscribe to Vincent's channel. He's doing some really beautiful art, and he's got some amazing stuff up here while he's telling story. I think closed caption is working now, too. You even got closed captionings. Look at that. Science.
Yeah, I'll have a new video out by this week.
Looking forward to it.
Next
and then
one
also,
is Santa Claus. Here's a painting. Here's the painting, actually.
Let me pull up. Wow.
Just gotta say, it's really satisfying watching the speed painting, by the way.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you do some beautiful work.
Transhumanist Santa Claus. I love it.
Transhumanist.
American Time Machine. Make sure you take the time for American Time Machine. Sympathy, rising to the top. Synthesize. If you haven't already heard APM.
Yeah.
Is this the wrong one? This is somebody else.
Oh, that's an album. Most recent album.
Remember when Joe Biden defecated himself? Tulsi Gabbard is hot, short selling, human. Anal creme pea. I don't know how to say that in a safer way for YouTube. Witchcraft is a really good album. I almost had a girlfriend. Pretty great. This bitch is crazy. I'm horny hugs. Give me a boner. Witchcraft. Imagination is reality. I mean, just the names. Come on. These are great. This is a very specific audience, but I know it's you. So go ahead and just do it. American Time Machine.
New album out today. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's cool. Golden ratio, closer inspection, everything hurts. Oh, I could have read these and been way happier. I was like, I'm going to say this, and then the internet's going to be like, strike. But this is, I'm going to listen to this. I'll listen to this right after this. 27 minutes. We'll listen to the Giant.
Boom.
Sweet. Guys, go listen to this album with me, Architecture of All Knowledge. You'll be listening to it at the same time as I am, if that makes you feel cool. And the Advanced Philosophy meme song, which we're going to get back on here. We're working on it. I had some tech problems and I've been traveling, but you'll see. You'll all see. It's going to be great. Did I miss anybody? Simon, you want to tell them where they can talk to you?
I'm just going to shout out the Discord, I guess.
Guys, go to charternova.com, click on the Discord entry link, and once you're in there, you can find Simon C., who is a mod, and ask them what they should call you. And they should call me... What's it called? What's that book? You know? Ishmael. Come on, guys.
Harrison
All right.
Bergeron.
All right. I love you. I'll see you guys next week. And maybe I'm doing a show tomorrow. I don't know. I think we'll find out how that all works. But guys, next week for sure. MK Canada. I love you very much. Thanks for being here.
Love you too.
Good
Take
show.
care.
Love you all. Until the next one.
Canada is a country. Waves of people came to this country, were welcomed by the folks who have lived here for millennia, the First Nation. And built this society with waves of people fleeing religious persecution, fleeing tyranny, fleeing to try and build a better life for themselves here than they had back home. Whether it's folks fleeing from world wars or fleeing from civil wars, these people always want the same thing: to be able to live in peace, to raise their families, create a better future for themselves and their communities. And that is what generations created, this extraordinary diverse society we have. Now, Canada remains one of the only countries in the world where citizens are, by and large, positively kind. And one of the reasons we are that way is because Canadians have confidence in our people.
Yes, fan mail. Good point, Sticky Marks. Send fan mail, please do, to Andreas Xirtus, P.O. Box 131, Cambridge, Minnesota, United States, 55008. That's 55008. It's on the description of every video. Love you guys. Merry Christmas.